Hi, Jennifer.
Hi there.
Let me see Sandeep will join. Jennifer, we can start. If Sandeep will join, then he'll catch it.
Okay. Let's see. Let me share my screen. Okay. Let me think of the best way to walk you through. I'm a little bit frustrated because with the change to the package name,
Yeah, Hyperledger-Cacti.
so with the change to the package name, I think that's impacting the publishing of the Open API docs. So we can't, we don't have the nice web UI for the Open API right now.
Let me quickly take a look at this. Sorry, give me a second. There's an actions, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
it's
yeah.
it's okay. The name was hard coded in the Hyperledger ampersand was with the at sign was hard coded in that publishing script. So I gotta take a look at that.
You can just submit a PR with that fix. Get
Yeah,
it approved very quick.
yeah. So without that, so the starting off at the Open API spec is in packages. The way these are all set up is they're in the main JSON.
Mhm.
And the way that the Cactus define their Open API is they use a template file, which then other things are generated from.
Mhm.
Um, so this is where the JSON is defined, and then the generators go and they take that and they make the protobuf. So similar to how the Weaver also generates proto in Kotlin, I've
Yeah.
got a proto Kotlin here. One thing that I wasn't very happy with is I ended up copying the grade loop.
Yeah.
Uh, so maybe there's another way to do this because I know that grade loop this shows up in a whole bunch of places, and I'm wondering
Yeah.
if that's really the right way.
I know what you're saying, but in any project that's built with the Gradle, you see all these files checked in. Gradle properties. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so
I,
this one here is a very, very simple project. It just goes and it looks into the protos directory and it goes and generates. There's like nothing here. It's just the generator. Um,
and it publishes, right? There's a publish
yeah,
option as well.
well, I haven't set up publishing because I don't know if there's a benefit to that until it's in, I don't know, until the people start using it. It feels like it's all in a kind of an early state. So let's go and look at the um how do you I'm just wondering if there's anything you'd like to focus on, because I was just going to just do a general overview of how the code is set up.
Sure, yeah, you can, at least for today, you can walk through the code and also just tell me how you're running the test so
Hmm.
I can see
Yeah, well
how the whole thing works. Yeah.
so this is where the core templates for the OpenAPI JSON and
Mhm.
the protos are generated. There's also
Mhm.
some common code in here that can be reused among TypeScript implementations. It was kind of unfortunate that the second um, implementation couldn't use the TypeScript, and we had to go to Kotlin. But that's okay.
One quick
Um,
thing on the proto, you still had the problem where some of the field numbers were very high, right? You
yes,
still have
yes,
that.
yeah,
Okay.
that's in the generator. So what I did is I did go and specify let's go and look for an object. Okay, like for instance, I do go and specify the protobuf, and I even tried putting it after the ref because I thought this was, so you'd asked me to try object, uh,
Yeah.
and that didn't do anything. And I moved it, I thought, well, maybe it's going here and using those parameters, so I should try putting it after so that it doesn't get overwritten, but that didn't help either. So anything that's a ref shows up as a
Mhm.
high number. Um,
Yeah, I just
it
wonder, yeah, go on, sorry.
the ref number is the hash of the
Mhm.
property name, so it's guaranteed to be
Okay.
unique. So
Mhm.
that's where they get that. It's not like a random number.
Right.
Uh, okay, so that's where the idea of it is defined. And now the
Mhm.
most important thing then after that is the testing. So the tests are done in Jest, like the rest of the cactus, and they're set up so that we have common interfaces
Mhm.
for the testers, which are then implemented in Fabric and Corda. And kind of an important aspect too is being able to programmatically um, mint the assets and check on their state from the testing.
Mhm.
So the way that works out is that when you look at the test, we've got a test for um, NFTs. So this is made to be data driven. So you just can specify the types of networks that you're going from. Uh, and the so we say we get our testing framework to tell us who the party A and party B is. We get the certificates for those parties and an implementation of the asset abstraction. So we go and we can add a non-fungible asset, like we're testing bonds. So we can go and
Mhm.
add a bond. And the way this is set up is that you can do it in a loop. So the pledge asset name is always unique. Um, so then we can go and pledge that asset type from party A to party B, and then make sure that that comes back okay, get the pledge ID, and then we can claim the pledge for party B, getting the client for party B. And then we go and we can check that the assets of party A does not include that non-fungible asset, and the assets of party B does include that. Uh, okay, so and then the same thing over here with fungible, going from network type to network type. We've got we are minting some tokens to start out with. for party A, and then recording the token balance of party A and party B. So we do the pledges. For party A does the pledge, and then here party B does the claim. And then we check that one is below, one is lower, and one is higher. So we've got the expected quantity changed hands. Okay. And then the lock is much the same. We're just, one check here is that we're going between different parties on the same network. Now, I always, there's kind of a word problem. Sometimes I say network and sometimes I say organization. I think what the idea here that I'm trying to get to is organization key or something. And so that should probably be standardized in the naming. And that was one of the things I wanted to ask you. Because this is also in Weaver, is sometimes it's a network and sometimes it's basically the destination group. You know what I mean?
So, just tell me where in Beaver is there confusion? So, the term organization is quite specific to Fabric. It's in Fabric, it's a subdivision of a network. Rather, it's a bunch of organizations together form a network. You can think of it as a bottom-up or a top-down process.
Yeah.
So, an organization so strictly is part of a network. So there should not be an ambiguity. Where did you see in Beaver where there was confusion about this?
Well, there's organization. So there's the MSP ID, I guess, which identifies an organization
Yeah.
within a network.
Yeah.
So we've got, so in Weaver, we've got our network idea. So if we look at the Fabric SDK, the Fabric CLI, I mean, we've got the remote network definitions. So we've got Corda network and Corda network 2. So
they're separate networks. These are not organizations.
Yes, and network 1 and network 2.
They're also separate networks.
Yeah, they're separate networks, but they could also be implemented like I think what we really want here is the organization, not necessarily the network, because you need to be able to identify, well,
I think the purpose of this file is so you can identify a relay from the identity of the network, because a network can network can use multiple relays. That's possible, but one relay is sufficient, and the relay is supposed to be a gateway for the network. It's kind of like think of it like a reverse proxy. It doesn't exactly work like a reverse proxy, but it's it functions in a similar way.
So the config JSON is the local settings, I guess, of the network. And here, I see where the MSP ID is defined. All right.
It's a good question. I don't know what this MSP ID field refers to. This is the configuration that Sandeep is more proficient in than I am, and I usually don't do anything with the configuration. I just change whatever I see in the instructions.
So, but it's an important point to remember that in Fabric we can have separate MSP IDs. So they're the same here, but it could be different. So here we've got like, okay, so what if I had 2 organizations on the same network? You see what I'm saying?
No, I know, but I don't remember what the purpose of this particular attribute is. I'll have to look at the code. I'll have to ask Sandeep. What did you find out? Did you?
I'm pretty sure just by looking at the cactus that this is the unique identifier of the organization, and there can be multiple, like you say, of these on the same network.
That is true. That is true. But in this case, this particular network can have multiple organizations, and I have actually we are Sandeep and I we're working on a like a separate feature. We are writing a paper on it. So we
Mhm.
have in our fork, he added another parameter here called numargs just after the ACL policy principal type. And there
Mhm.
we specify the number of orgs. We can go up to 10. But the
Mhm.
MSP ID still remains org1 MSP. So I think it serves a particular purpose. Let me just do a quick check. Just give me a second. I see the purpose. So the purpose is in any fabric network, you can submit a transaction. Uh, you're not limited by so every organization which
Mhm.
has an MSP ID and that's unique for that organization, it can issue credentials to clients which are wallet identities. But the thing is, Fabric does not limit any client from hitting any org sphere. So to submit a particular transaction, theoretically, you just need the MSP ID of one organization. So I think what we have here is we just have one MSP ID so that somewhere inside the code, there's some helper functions. We just try to submit a transaction and they just use that MSP ID unless another one is provided. So this is
Mhm.
supposed to be the default MSP ID they're supposed to use, but I also
Mhm.
see that in those functions, there are MSP IDs provided as a parameter. And if the parameter happens to be different, it can be all 3 MSP, for example, then it's going to override whatever is specified here. So
Okay.
that's what it is.
Okay. Okay. So more evidence. I think what we're actually talking about here is the organization, because we're supplying the connection profile for an organization.
Mhm.
So really, these are organizations.
Yeah, I think the connection profile, no, the connection profile also, it can contain more than just information about the organization. It doesn't, again, let me see what this particular connection profile contains. No, in this case, yeah, it does talk about organization one. Uh, let me just see.
But yeah, this is all I wanted to bring up. That I think we've kind of
Mhm.
mushed the terms a bit.
Yeah,
So we got to figure out what we're actually talking about. But it's
right.
it's
Mhm.
fine.
Yeah. No, this particular, so this config JSON is, I mean, it's kind of an ad hoc file that was created and we kept using it. I would honestly, the test files that you showed, the COPM test package, I think
Mm-hmm.
that's structured in a much better way than the Fabric CLI. We want to at some point give this up. So now that you have
Yeah.
the COPM packages, we will transition to that. We're still using this because we are used to it. Honestly,
Yeah.
that's the
No. No.
thing.
No. No. But
Yeah.
and also when you demo to clients, I mean, no one wants to watch a test pass. So it's much
Yeah.
more. It's much more visible. The CLI.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So, by the way, after your internship is done, mentorship is done, we
Yeah.
have I don't know if we, Sandeep or I will get the time. For us, this is strictly a side project that we are working on, which we
Mm-hmm.
have some leeway from our managers, but we will have to, aside from COPM, we'll have to expose the Weaver relay and the Weaver drivers and the Weaver identity agents as packages here. So when we do that, at that point we can hook all of those things together and run the this kind of end-to-end scenarios that we do right now in a somewhat ham-fisted way with Fabric CLI.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, this is great. I mean, what you have is a great start, and I think this has given us I think should advertise this. The people organize workshops on these for the different projects, and especially after mentorships, you have the opportunity to get presentation slots in an upcoming meetup.
Oh
You don't
yeah.
have to go anywhere. You can do it online. Yeah, and I would like to advertise what you've done in different forums that way.
Oh, okay. Uh, the other thing that I wanted, while we're here, one thing I also think is a little bit
Mhm.
not so great is we've got, or rather that could be a little bit fragile, is the single chain code here. And I'm not sure that's really, well,
We change this parameter, by the way. If you remember the instructions in the docs,
yeah,
depending on they ask you to change the value of this. So it
yeah,
can be
yeah.
simple asset. Yeah,
My point is that it's a single chain code value.
right.
So is that really going to be the case? If we look at so let's go and look at the remote. Then the remote is also let's go back to this Fabric CLI. The remote settings are also,
That's actually partly a limitation of our test, because when you're testing
yeah,
something, we're testing only one thing at a time. Of course, we
mm-hmm,
can choose to deploy the simple asset and the simple state and the another chain code if you want. Nothing stops us.
mm-hmm,
So at that, when we do that, we can run multiple tests. But uh, we we did that because the whole concept of our test networks, or the motivation for creating our test networks and this Crash the Fabric CLI, was that the test networks were a quick and easy way of testing out our features on a minimal network, be it built
mm-hmm.
on Fabric or Cod or something. So that's what we envisioned. This was not the all this testing stuff was not meant to be like part of any sort of production system.
Yeah,
This was just for our
yeah.
training.
I just, because it makes a difference to my stuff and how I set it up.
Yeah.
Because here we've got one single flow package.
Hmm?
And the examples are actually in different flow packages. There's a COM, Cortis simple application flow, and Cortis sample tokenized host flow. And so I was kind of wondering, well, how should I set this up? Is every single, okay, let me show you maybe from here. It's easier.
You
So
can show me. I'm not sure if I'll be able to help you. This is something
yeah,
I think Sandeep knows about this particular
yeah,
configuration.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. So let's go back
And yeah.
to safe ground.
Mm.
So there's the token or the pledge claim. The
Mhm.
lock claim works the
Yeah.
same way, and just
Right.
we're getting two parties given a network type, and then we make sure at the end of the day that everybody ends up with the assets that they're supposed to end up with.
Mhm.
And then the verified view,
Yeah.
we've got, this is an interop call because it's between two networks. So we get our party A,
Yeah.
and our party B, and we go, and so I used pledge here because it was something that was enabled on all networks. When you guys have some read examples in your testing, but it's not necessarily enabled in the test scenario across all the networks. And so I thought, well, we've already got pledge working. So let's
Mhm.
just make a pledge and see if we can read it. So because the read, the status differs in the different networks, the verify view is left up to the varies according to the implementation. So we get the verify view command and then we run it. And we're just here to looking that nothing failed. The because you get back a string that is kind of random and you can't really verify it. So this could possibly be improved in that we could go but I didn't want to mess about with the settings too much because it gets to be a hassle to maintain other people's code, so as much as I could, I was just reusing what was already done in the Weaver infrastructure without changing anything. So those are the three basic tests. I wanted to run them in a loop because that would be more efficient, but they ran into some problems with the tokens that I mentioned, that the tokens need to be in a certain way to, like, it's just easy. I run into problems when I run the token and tests in a loop because of the way that the Corda is implemented, the Corda sample token. So if we go and look at the actions, they're split into, that one's not done yet.
How long is we going on? The COPM Corda?
Yeah, so we'll look at the last one that ran. Yeah, good, it passed. So we've got a matrix job that runs the tests based on the matrix values. One thing to mention is that again, because I didn't want to change anything, there's a little bit of funkiness in the testers. In the fabric, the party A and party B depends on what's going on in fabric, because there's some of for lock, for instance, the asset types are specific to the network. So let's see what that looks like. It looks a bit funny. So, but that's why party A and party B have an asset type, because it makes a difference in the fabric implementation. So if we're looking at a bond asset type, those are only on that one. So in case anybody asks, why is that like that? Okay, so that's basically that's the key part, is just knowing what.
Just explain this to me a little bit more. This is the constructor for, wait, no, it's not constructor. Get party A asset type.
Yeah.
Can you just explain that to me again?
Sure, let's back up. Yeah. So this is the infrastructure used in the testing.
Right.
So if we're locking,
yeah.
So on the lock network, the bonds are only on network 0, and the tokens are on the other network. That's just how just how the test networks are set up.
That's how I get what you're saying. Yeah, that's again limitation of how we built it. I think there's something can be changed later. Okay.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, by the way, on assets, just as general FYI, I think I've mentioned in the past, I'm working on some on standardizing some of these protocols under the IETF. There's you may have seen, if you get notifications for PRs and issues, that there's something called SATP, which is the Secure Asset Transfer Protocol, and people have been working on that. There's some support for that in the Weaver modules. There's a package right here. If you go down, there's a package on SATP Hermes. That's another implementation of that. So as part of this initiative, people are also working on draft specification for asset profiles. So if they succeed in that, and if that gets adopted as a standard, we can kind of eliminate all of this specific asset type stuff, because then we can give examples where the chain codes just use these well-known asset profile standard, and you can create an assets as an instance or a subtype of that whatever has been specified in that standard. So that will make it easier, make it more interoperable. But yeah, currently there is nothing like that. So assets, the term asset is very loose. I mean, in the real world, an asset can be almost anything, right? Something that is
Mm-hmm.
tangible. In the digital world, similarly, an asset is just a it's a piece of code really. It's an interface, and any application can really choose to define, in the absence of a standard, they can choose to define their own interface for corresponding to an asset. So that's why we just gave some examples of, if you have if you write a chain code and you expose an asset in this way, this is how you can do and a pledge or lock on that. That's what we were trying to show. We were trying to show an example, not like a completely set way of doing these things.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's it. That once you know what the tests are doing, you know what all of the code is doing.
Mhm.
The implementation are
Mhm.
in two packages down here. So we've got the plugin for Fabric and the plugin for Corda.
Okay.
One thing that I want to draw attention to, though, is the way that so the uh, how I set it up like a Cactus plugin, in exactly the same way that the Ledger connector plugin for Corda is set up, and that there is a TypeScript implementation that's just a pass through to everything in Kotlin. And I think that that's done that way because the Cactus server needs to know about the methods in TypeScript in order to for all of its registration to work. So there is the plugin stuff in here that does that's just that's exactly that, a pass through. And the real implementation is in Kotlin.
Okay.
So the and within the Kotlin, we have the main implementation, and then there is the sample, all right? Because there's a lot that is dependent, like I was saying yesterday, on how the network is set up. So that's sectioned off in both the Fabric and the Corda implementations into something that's outside the main code. And I think it's a good project goal to work towards minimizing what is application specific, so that really nothing really changes. So mostly what's application specific is how this isn't looks nicer in here. So in the application specific sample, we've got the how the Corda network is configured. So this is another thing. All of the let's look at I talked about this yesterday. So all of the commands take in the Corda implementation, they take an observer and they take an issuer. So in
Mhm.
the Corda CLI, this is hard coded and this is usually empty or passed in from the CLI. I think what you really want is you want some rules for, okay, given a particular type of situation, who are the observers, and given a particular asset, who is the
Yep.
asset. So I threw them out here because I know that that's going to change. I think you need the issuer because of the Corda implementation passes through some burn and mint commands. So I think that those are needed for that. But this is all going to be really implementation dependent. So that's why they're out here. And probably this should change based on the asset instead of the issuer. But we're also going and getting the asset contract for a given asset. So in the example, we've got two asset contracts, we've got, and this is where I would set up the Corda, the host tokens. If I was going to set that up, I would set that up in here, because this is going and reaching out to the application specific stuff. The other thing that I think is unique, but I'm not totally sure, is to the implementation is the pledge ID info, because that varies depending on the network type. So we've got different implementations for Fabric and for Corda, and we've got different different commands based on whether they are fungible or non-fungible. And again, we've got the actual contract here. So this is where I'm wondering, well, should I use what I could do is use the contract name from the remote configuration file, but like here, if I pull in host tokens, they're not necessarily going to be in that same flow. So that was the question I was thinking of last night. Okay.
So is that limitation of the remote config JSON file? Do we need
Yeah,
another?
well, I just think that it's more, is this a standard? Will all Corda pledge info commands look exactly like this? And then where should I get this value from? Is that going to be the same for all tokens, for instance, for all non-fungible? So right now this is matching. It's like this is done in the CLIs right now. This is done in a case statement. So there's a if your network type is Corda and your asset type is this, then use this command. And I think if you're going to add more and more stuff, you want to break that out of a switch statement and make it sort of a flat list. So this goes and looks through, given the network and some information about the assets, what's the pledge command that I should use? So I've got this right now outside because we've got so much variables that seem to be specific to the application, but this is something that I think as a project, you'll want to look at making not application specific by making it more so not making it, getting away from any application specific.
Yeah, and that's been an effort, but yeah.
Okay.
So some of these Corda things, I in concept, I can I understand what you're saying. I vaguely remember the configuration, but Sandeep is the one who needs to be hearing this. So do you mind if we just have a quick call? I'll make sure he can come on next week. We'll fix a time that's suitable, and then we'll go over just go over some of the Corda stuff, I think, at that point, and he can tell you maybe give you some of the rationale for why things are the way they are, which I may not be able to tell you just off the top of my head.
Okay, but that's how it's set up. Everything that I thought was application specific is pulled out specifically outside of the main code, so that we can make decisions. So that it's first of all very, very clear. Because when you look at the CLIs, the application specific is it's mixed in because you're just showing that it can be done. So this is a good chance to look at all of these things and make sure that it's set up the way that is easy to apply to different networks and different applications. Okay, so let's meet when you want to meet at the next opportunity with Sandeep.
Sure. Tentatively, let's say Tuesday, but I'll check with Sandeep.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Jennifer. That was very useful. Yeah.
Okay, you
Talk
too.
to you next week.
Bye.
Bye.